So, Barbara Hannigan, you recently performed Magnus Lindberg's song cycle in London and now in Musica Nova Helsinki, all contemporary program. Why do you sing and conduct contemporary so much?
It's my passion, this music. This kind of, it's like walking in snow that nobody stepped in yet, you know? And underneath it is ground that many people have walked on. But somehow the fact that it's, the initial footprint is fresh, that for me has really always been something special. And it's a risky path.
Sure.
Because sometimes you don't know what you're going to get, you know? This Abrahamson piece that I will sing was a commission. It was the first piece that Hans Abrahamson had ever written for the voice. And it turned out to be absolutely beautiful and very much me. And it's been a piece that I love performing as much as possible.
About this Abrahamson piece, how did you collaborate with him? How did you come up with commissioning a piece from Abrahamson?
From him. It's funny because the idea of it was that it was a birthday gift for the writer, Paul Griffiths, who wrote the text for this piece. And the text for this piece comes from a book of his called Let Me Tell You, which is on the subject of Ophelia from Shakespeare's Hamlet. And the idea for the piece was from Paul Griffiths' wife to me, can we do something special for Paul's birthday? And the next thing you know, this incredible 33-minute orchestral piece has been born, you know, or discovered or uncovered, however you want to think about it, as a gift, you know, and it turned out to be a gift to a lot more people than Paul Griffiths.
But you also conduct.
Yes.
In this concert you conducted the year piece. How did you come up with conducting? It's quite unusual to become a soprano first and then to become a good conductor.
Yeah, it's funny. It's funny because I was in a field that was, you know, completely dominated by women. Being a soprano, you don't ever think I'm a female soprano, you know? And then I moved into conducting, which is a different group of colleagues. It's fascinating in a psychological way. And musically, it was, I think for me, an expansion that I really wanted to experience. I wanted to explore. And that's what I'm doing every day. I'm exploring it. And
what drew you in conducting?
Well, it was actually the idea of a colleague of mine at Radio France who was running a festival, I guess it was 5 years ago now, 4 years ago. And he had been watching me for a few years and he just said, Barbara, you may think I'm crazy, but you sing like a conductor and I really, really want you to try this. And I will arrange the debut for you. And the debut was with Avanti.
Right.
At the Châtelet in Paris. It was with Le Renard by Stravinsky for 4 male singers and chamber orchestra. And after that, I started to make programs where I was the soloist for 30% of the program and I was conducting 100% of the program. So I would do 70% pieces without voice. But of course I had to do both jobs. And it developed into a very interesting genre. And in those programs, I do not do exclusively contemporary music. I'm actually mixing Rossini, Mozart, Fauré with Ligeti, with Stravinsky, you know, finding very interesting combinations which make sense to me, which I want to present. And that's been the last 4 years.
But how do you divide your time? I mean, you're practicing on singing.
Yes.
And conducting, and
Yes.
you also do gymnastics and yoga. And
No. I exercise, definitely.
Yeah.
But that's almost more for the brain than for the body, in fact. And the division of time it's interesting because yes, the singing technique is very important, and yes, studying the score is very important, and working on conducting and working on gesture, you know, this is developmental for me. But the other side of things is the psychological aspect of maintaining this lifestyle, which is a lot of travel, which is a lot of pressure, and need for consistency, and the need to be able to produce the level that has to be presented at the exact moment, you know, when you'd have to do it. And that's a mental game. So there's a lot to work on. There's a lot to work on. And for me, I love studying and I love working. And I've always been like that since I was a child. I just love working. For me, if I have a few hours off, I can't sit down. You know, I still need to be doing something that's like feeding me, you know, that's a kind of nourishment, and it's usually to do with music.
Did you always wanted to be a musician?
Yes, always. When I was 4 or something, I asked my mother if we could, my brothers and sisters and I could take piano lessons. And from then on, I knew I would be a musician. I just didn't know what kind. And my upbringing was not sophisticated at all. It wasn't, I had never heard contemporary music. I hadn't even heard a Mahler symphony, certainly not Bruckner, like nothing like that, until I was 17 or 18. And then I moved to the big city, Toronto, which was 2 hours away by airplane. And then I started to hear some of that music. But I always knew that I would become some kind of musician. But to be honest, when I was a kid, I had never seen a woman conduct except like choirs. But I didn't know that women were allowed to be conductors of orchestras. Yeah, it didn't happen where I was from, and I had never seen it on TV or anything like that.
Do you still think it's an issue for you to be a woman and a conductor?
I think it's an issue for others. I think it's a very important issue. And it is part of most of my conversations. I used to think, forget about it. But now I realize that gender stereotype and that kind of breaking open of something that was convention, perhaps unhealthy convention, is very important for many people. And it is a kind of taking off of a very heavy coat, you know.
I wasn't going to ask you about this.
I know, but it's in my mind, I suppose, a lot. And I do think it's important, somehow.
You also conduct and sing at the same time.
Yeah.
So tell me about it. How is it possible?
Well, the conducting singing is an interesting combination. I always think that the audience doesn't actually see the exciting part. And the exciting part is the first rehearsal. The exciting part is when I'm facing the orchestra and I'm really leading and showing and conducting. Because as we rehearse, first day, second day, third day, I do less and less and less until, if things go well, when I'm singing, I just need to give a very small cue here and there, even with a shoulder or just a look or a breath of an upbeat, like a rib cage upbeat, as opposed to a cue, you know, and that's where we end up in the performance. But in the rehearsals, I'm facing them and really doing all the actions, you know. So it's an interesting thing. It's very, I find it very challenging because it's hard on my voice to speak and to sing. And I know the sign of a good conductor is that they don't speak very much, and I really try to work on that because it kills my voice to try and speak to a large group of people. Whereas if I'm singing, I know that the instrument is going to carry. It's also, you know, when you sing, you want to have a certain kind of alignment. So if you start getting wrapped up in physical gesture, it is a different, it does kind of change the neck, the shoulders a little bit, and you have to be quite careful with how you manage it.
Do you think you can keep up with these two professions?
Oh yeah, I think so, yeah. I mean, the singing seems to be going well. I think I have a few years left as a singer, so I would like to really use them. And I often do things where I'm not conducting at all. You know, I'm singing operas or I'm singing pieces just as a singer. And at this point, you know, 20–30% of my performance is conducting, and that's it. Because I want to use the instrument while it's in good shape and while I love it, because it gives me an incredible personal satisfaction to sing. It's nice if people like it, but for me, that's the core. If I like it, if I enjoy it, if I liked that sound, if I liked the feeling of making that sound, that's what I'm interested in.